Okay, so the front part of the EGR, the heat exchange, is gone now. I've got to get that back part out and look at unbolting the manifold. Also going to have to take off that return line banjo, but the fuel rail looks like it can stay there. So let's just disconnect all this, move that out of the way, move the top bracket out, the bottom bracket. I am going to have to make some new bracket adaptations to stop this manifold from flexing, even though it's pretty damn sturdy. I'm guessing with the EGR hanging off it, it would have cracked, but I just don't want to risk snapping it. So it does need, even that and that should be enough for a fairly stout little plastic manifold without the heavy little heat exchanger hanging off it. This one here, it's actually not bad. It's a little handy little exhaust or air to water heat exchanger, really. Pretty easy. That's quite handy actually. I'll keep that. It's not going back on. I just have to make up a blanking plate for the back of the cylinder head where the where this goes, because there is I believe there's a coolant pass through on it. It goes into here and then back to the block. So the block's got one port for exhaust gas and one for coolant on the same manifold, so that has to go up to heater, like basically up to there. So this hose here will be renewed with a right angle piece and go straight down to a hose barb coming off the side of the block. It'll just have a little dog leg or something in it to take up any vibration, and that's about it. Shouldn't be too hard. So all that's gone, all that extra weight and unnecessary or disabled EGR's gone. This whole system's already been disabled electronically in here, so it wasn't doing anything to begin with. Yeah, very good. Alright, getting there. Probably one of the world's most complicated inlet removals. Now, if it wasn't for all the ancillary stuff mounted on it, it would be fine. Gonna get that bracket out and clean all that sludge off it. I've gone through about 8 sets of gloves just doing that far. Like, everything's just carbon black. It's just crap getting blown back off the intake leak. That is, I'm hoping that's not a crack. It actually looks like it's a moulding line where the die closes up on it. Here across all of them. That is the top brace. That is the remaining section, as you can see, coolant and exhaust. So he is coming off and staying off. No need for the fuel preheater either, not in this climate. It rarely gets below 5 degrees, and even then she still starts and runs perfectly fine every time. So yeah, let's keep taking manifold bolts out, get this plastic piece of crap out of here and try and clean it. These hoses don't have to come up through it again either. Now the EGR stuff's gone, they can just come over the top. Same with that. Let's simplify things, make it easier. I'll just make a couple of basic metal braces. Like, I'll put this frame back up because that also supports the EGR mixer, which is now just acting as a connecting link. That supports the EGR mixer, and then yeah, I'll just put my own bracing in. She'll be just fine. Once all this is said and done, I'll work on the exhaust, get that turbo breathing a little bit better. Might even be able to exceed the factory torque rating. G'day folks, just a quick little video. I'm going to do a full video on the work that I'm doing on my ML270, but before then I thought I'd show you an extreme case of EGR swirler flap degradation. Look at that. That is disgusting. That's cylinder number 1. That's the one that was disconnected on the video. Talk about boost leak. Wow. Especially this one here. Look at that. At least they weren't restricting the inlets. They're just not doing anything productive. There's the servo motor. It's completely disconnected, hasn't done anything for a long time. Yeah, it's all just been flapping around in the breeze and doing whatever it wants. There's nice deposits of oily mouse shit in there as well. Oh, crap. Wow, I didn't know it was this bad. That, I think, is supposed to be attached to that. It's not throwing an engine code, so this actuator is still working. I want it to work because it does throw codes if it doesn't. But to be honest, yeah. The link's missing. There'll be a link that goes from here to here normally, up in there. That's gone. So, yeah, that's not good. Unless it fell out when I took it out. It might have fallen out, but it doesn't look like... No, that little ball stud there has not had anything attached to it for a very long time. There's random bits and pieces falling off the top of it. Yeah, so this is a 356,000 kilometre OM612 diesel engine, suffering from a bad case of the completely rooted EGR swirlers. This is the point where they almost break off and go down the intake. These ones are not that delicate that they want to break up easily, but there's been one documented case where one of these has broken off and jammed a valve open. The engine eats the valve and, well, good night Irene. It's time for a new engine. In the case of it, what I paid about $2,800 for the SUV itself, it's not really worth putting a new engine in by that point. So there you go. That is an extreme case, or high mileage case of EGR swirler flap degradation, and you can see the wall of carbon that's built up on these inlet ports. So yes, cans of caustic oven cleaner and a big plastic tub. And that's what this one's got in store for it. I've already scraped and vacuumed a bit out of it when I cleaned the EGR out and electronically deleted it. But yeah, this is about a $700 part, so I'd rather try and save this one than buy a new one. I'm going to be threading some 3/8 BSP plugs in here. I'm going to remove the swirlers, put the retainers and new seals back in, but I'm going to tap a thread in each of these and thread a 3/8 BSP threaded plug in there and just safety wire or lock wire the whole lot together. This can stay where it is. Well, I'll take it off for cleaning, but it's going back on. As long as it can swing, it won't throw a or won't go into limp home mode or throw a check engine light. If you take it off completely, the car has a bit of a fit and stops. But yeah, that's disgraceful. No wonder my boost's disappearing. Alright, engine mount time. I've got the nuts off. This side's easy, especially with the intake off, and you can see the mount itself is collapsed and shredding. We'll have a closer look at how bad that is when I get it out of there. This side's not quite as bad. You can see it down there. I've got the nut off and the heat shield off. It's not quite as bad, but the other side is oil affected. There's nuts on the underside. It'll take 2 nuts from the underside, 1 from the top. Same with the other side, which is a lot harder. You need a good extension and a universal joint to get up under there and undo them, which is quite hard because you've got the drive shaft coming out of the diff on the passenger side. So definitely a lot harder, but not impossible. Nothing's impossible around here. So yeah, let's see if I have enough clearance to lift this engine up and do it like the way the guy told me to. Actually, before I forget, I'll take this refrigerant line off before it hits the e-box and snaps off. That would be bad. Okay, so the engine really wants to tip over that way, so I had it jacked up just enough to take the load off the mount, unbolted this engine mount bracket, 4 of these E-Torx bolts, lifted the whole lot out, quickly slipped the new mount in and the bracket back on again. So I didn't have to lift it all the way up. I can reconnect that refrigeration line now. New O-ring and everything can go on it. And that's all good. But trying to get to this one, I'm going to have to bolt that one in and just change the jacking position and everything and try and shift the load across. Get it just high enough to slip it out. That, or I've got to try and take the bracket off, which isn't impossible. I can see all the bolts from here. I think that might be the safest actually. Yeah, I'll just get an extension in there and unbolt that bracket from the side of the block. I don't want to jack the car up too high. Those flex joints probably won't like it very much. Not that they're that bad, I just don't want to stress test anything too much. Rightio, engine mounts are now in. Nice and tight and fresh. The old ones aren't the best looking. That's the driver's side one, which is very collapsed. There's a big gap in there. That's the passenger side one, which is basically delaminated. You can see the gap down there. I could almost probably twist that into two separate pieces if I wanted to. Yeah, if I get some gloves on, I'll actually try and rip that apart. It probably will come apart, especially that segment there. You can see it's split through on all four corners. That one's probably still hanging in. So yeah, they're done. And I also bought a new shiny water pump. Yummy. It doesn't feel like it has rocks in it. Also got a new idler because the other one does feel like it has rocks in it as well. That came separate. I bought this a little while ago. It's a Trident or redistributed Motorrad thermostat and thermostat housing assembly with temperature sensor. They come as a whole unit. You don't just get a separate thermostat. Yeah. So there are gaskets and things for the water pump. Very nice. Shiny. Beautiful. Not cheap though, that was $180. But it has to be done to make her, Elise, a really nice fun little car. So yeah. Yeah. The old one, you can hear the balls rattling around inside the bearing races. Click, click. Oops, I'm trying to knock the camera out. Yeah, that one's dead, that one's dead. That one's almost dead, but that's part of the idler tensioner, which is another $150. I'll do that one later. They're easy enough to do with the radiator and everything in place. Gurgle, gurgle. Anyway, I've given the front of the engine a bit of a clean down with some carby cleaner. And about ready to take the water pump out. You gotta love having a proper set of e-Torx drivers. You cannot do this job properly without them. Like, you really can't. Any mildly tight screw, you strip the head off if you try and use a normal spline drive socket. You just can't do it. So you got to go out and buy yourself a decent set of e-Torx and Torx driver bits, which is essentially this. And I have put these under a lot of pressure, even using them on a rattle gun, which they're not rated for, and they have not distorted or stripped or shattered. So I'm really, really impressed with these. Really impressed. Oh, and the manifold's nice and clean now as well. That's the little servo controller. And that is ready to come apart. They do have bushings in there, but everything's glass reinforced plastic. So yeah, I'll get these out, plug these holes up, like take these yellow inserts out, drill or tap 3/8 BSP and plug them off. Then we'll give it one more wash. Like, this thing's been sitting in caustic soda for half the day. And yeah, she'll be nice and happy. Yeah, sludge. The camera doesn't show it as well as it does, but there's a scum of oil on top I'm going to try and soak up with rags and dispose of properly, and the rest of it's just basically drain cleaner and carbon. So I'll probably just tip it out the back of the shed. Good weed killer. As long as there isn't too much oil. I just don't want a big oil slick.